Bloody muted! My best ever intro and I've muted it! What a wally! Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and it's time to deliver. It's time to fight. It's the last stand. It's the last chance. There is no excuses today. Manchester United 5:45 in Spain. Let's have it. 11 against 11, remember that. I think too many Man United players, I think too many Man United fans, down tools. They're beaten before the whistle is blown. We are Manchester United. This is it. I'm up for it. I hope you are as well. Lots to get into the show this morning. We'll talk obviously about the game later, but also Man United apparently bidding for the next Virgil van Dijk, an 18-year-old Argentinian. We like Argentinians these days, don't we? And we might be going for another one. We'll talk about that as well. Also, I want to talk... Look, we have to do... I mean, Man United need to fight on the pitch. We need to fight off the pitch as well. More incredible nonsense coming out more incredible nonsense coming out about the Glazers. So we will talk about that, absolutely. Tim Howard, former Man United player, coming out defending the Glazers, saying they've bought the club, they've spent their money, they can do what they like. Well, sit that down. This has to become a regular feature of United Stand shows. You can put it in the comments. When you see this nonsense, we call it out. There is clearly a drive from the media to protect the Glazers and Sir Jim, and they have access to the mainstream. We saw it yesterday. We spoke about it last night, and we're seeing it again here. Apologies. We'll talk about that as well. But also, I just want to say, sometimes we create our own story. And today, Manchester United play a massive game in Spain in the Europa League. Our season depends on this. In 2 weeks' time, we could be out of everything. Apparently, they're struggling to sell tickets for the Arsenal game. I understand why. We know there's protests. We know people are unhappy. But not everyone's going to attend that protest, unfortunately, are they? A lot of people will go into that ground and, it's their first time, whatever, respect. But the point is, they're struggling to sell tickets for that game because what's the point in it? What is the point? Arsenal will want to win because they're in a title race, potentially. I don't think they are. But what's the point with us? Why would people be excited about that? So, look, these are the problems that Manchester United face. There are so many problems that Manchester United face. But you know what I thought was worth mentioning this morning on a news show is that this season, Luke Shaw hasn't started a game for Manchester United. He's played 63 minutes. The only game he started in the last 12 months was for England. He hasn't started a game for Man United. He's not started a game this season. He's played 63 minutes. It is the middle of March. Mason Mount has started 4 games for Manchester United this season. A combined total of less than 4 games, minutes-wise. Because obviously Mason Mount didn't play 90 minutes. Less than 360 minutes combined in the Premier League for Mason Mount and Luke Shaw this season. That's less than 4 games. 360 minutes. It's absolutely disgusting. We pay them 400 grand a week. 400 grand a week, right? Bournemouth pay their entire squad £1 million a week. And Brentford pay their entire squad 800 grand a week. So effectively, we're paying Luke Shaw and Mason Mount half of what Brentford's entire squad get. Incredible. And look at where Brentford are in the league. So Mason Mount and Luke Shaw cost us about 400 grand a week. Brentford's entire squad cost them 800 grand a week. Look at the league table. You can talk about ticket prices and it's disgusting. You can talk about sacking people and it's disgusting. We've got 2 players who've played less than 4 games by the middle of March, and for every week of this season, we've paid them 50% of what Brentford's entire squad gets. That is atrocious, as says Mini Brew. It's absolutely bloody disgusting. So 400 grand a week we pay those 2 players. Brentford are paying around 800 grand a week for their entire squad. Look at the league table. Look at that. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And don't tell me in 2025 Man United can't do something. Well, we can't do anything about it. They're under contract. Of course you can bloody do something about it. There's something you can do about it. They just don't want to do it. It needs speaking about. There is so much going wrong at that football club, and that's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I tell you what, if you add Casemiro's wage to those 2, we're paying for Casemiro, Luke Shaw and Mason Mount what Brentford pay their entire squad per week. It's disgusting. And this is the thing about United. There are so many things you can go and dig up in a matter of seconds that make that football club an absolute joke. And there's another one for you. Anyway, I just wanted to get out that. The reason the reason I wanted to talk about it is because we're up against it tonight, aren't we? I mean, look, I'm behind every player that puts that shirt on tonight, and I'm sure you are as well. I want to sing Agadoo. I've been waiting for 2 weeks. I'm dreaming about Agadoo and pineapples. So I'm absolutely ready to sing Agadoo. But I don't know whether I'll be singing it tonight or not. We need a performance from these players tonight. And what I would say to the De Lits and the Brunos and the Rasmuses and the Garnachos and whoever else is going to play tonight, availability should not be underestimated when you're looking at some of the coasters we've got at United. And I say coasters, a bloody coaster that you put under your cup would be more use than some of these players, I tell you. It's not acceptable how many players sit on their arse and rinse this football club. Man United needs to do better. Absolutely. This is why, if true, we cannot pay Mainu 180k, says Ardo. What was with the yellow and green scarves before, says Curtis. And Mark, cracking show last night, did a quick search and found Madrid have 3,400 employees and Barcelona more than 6,800 employees. Thoughts? Look, Alex, let's talk about this because Tim Howard has spoken about the Glazers. And it was an amazing show last night. Obviously, check out the show. TalkSport invited Steve from the 58 group on yesterday and basically ambushed him. It was disgusting, and that's what the media do. They are not to be trusted. They are cowards. They ambush good people, and they are all on the payroll of, the powers that be. Let's be honest. But we can respond to that. We should be responding to that. And I think that Alex makes a good point. Thank you very much for your super chat, Alex, because we've heard that Man United are sacking half their workforce. And all they ever do is talk about Man City's workforce being about 600. But we know that Liverpool's is 1,000. We know that Real Madrid's is 3,400. So this is what I mean. The inaccuracies that get thrown out there. And unfortunately, if you... rest in peace to my family member who said this. I was going to say, unfortunately or fortunately, there are thick people in the world. As my former family member said, if you want to have a bit of evidence of that, just have a look at how many people are queuing outside Greg's every morning. I went, hold on a minute, you can't beat a bean and sausage melt. But he had his theories. Some of them were less controversial than others. But rest in peace. But the point is, there are thick people out there. There are intelligent people out there. This is the world we live in. There are horrible people out there. There are nice people out there. This is the world that we live in. And my point is that when somebody gets a platform, especially in the mainstream, to say something, we may go, that's nonsense, and get frustrated about it. But some people suck it in and swallow it. So when Simon Jordan was talking all that crap yesterday, some people, especially non-United fans, because they don't like us, they will believe Simon Jordan. And that's dangerous. That's propaganda. So when we see that, United shouldn't be protesting because the debt's not that significant, we as fans, majority will go, that's the disgraceful thing to say. But a lot of people will think bad of United fans for this because they'll go, oh yeah, Simon Jordan's right. So it's very frustrating. So Tim Howard, I got sent a clip this morning. Tim Howard, who is now officially the worst goalkeeper we've ever had at Manchester United. Not because I think he is, just because of this statement. And I will just say at the start as well, this is why in emerging markets like the United States, you need to be very, very careful. I've said it to you before. Craig Burley, Steve Nicol, Shaka Hislop, Tim Howard. These are terrible pundits. And these are the people that you're having to listen to. Absolutely terrible. If you want American audiences to understand football, stop giving them prats like this who don't understand football. So Tim Howard used to play for Manchester United. He's done an interview and basically said around the Glazers that if you own a football club, then you can do what you want with it. They've put the money in, they've spent their money, they can do what they want to do with it. And also, they've put the money into the football club. It's not them who've bought the players, but they can do what they want with it. because they bought it. I own a football club, and the bottom line is fans can moan, but they can do what they want. I think that this is in absolute 4K evidence as to why ex-footballers are legends for what they did on the pitch and not what's going on up here. Look, Tim Howard is not a legend of Manchester United, but we have got legends who are way off. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying that such and such as, Ryan Giggs is a legend of Man United, but I think he's a knobhead off it. I don't think that, by the way, but some people might. That's fine. But this sort of stuff is dangerous and has to be called out, because I'll tell you what, Tim, you can sit there on your whatever platform you're on with your podcast and your bloody TV deal. You're talking out your arse, mate. You're talking out your arse. Just because you've played the game doesn't mean you know the game. And you're talking absolute arse. I will just give you some very definitive, intelligent feedback, right? The Glazers can't do what they want with Manchester United because they might have bought it, but there's millions of people around the world that aren't going to sit back and take it. Why should we? So they can do what they want and we'll do what we want. I don't know what sort of dictatorship Tim Howard's got going on in his head that he thinks that the owner of a football club, because they bought it, can do what they like. So if my local pub starts putting piss in the pints, do I just go, oh, well, they own it, I'll have another one? No, we don't live in dictatorship times, Tim. So just because you own something doesn't mean you can inflict torture and dictate to people. So that's point number one. Point number two, the Glazers have spent their own money so they can do what they like. Tim, if you want to produce a little bit of evidence that the Glazers have spent any money on this football club, we will give you a raft of detail that they haven't. The whole club was bought on debt. It's not even legal to do it now in the Premier League. They've never put a pound in. They have not spent their money. You are massively, massively ignorant and offensive and disrespectful to the football club that paid you a wage. And you, as an ex-Manchester United player, should understand how your football club that paid you runs. And the Glazers haven't put a penny into Manchester United. So for you to sit there and say they've put their money in, they can do what they like, they haven't. It's our money. It's always been our money. They leveraged the club's profitability on debt. They've never put a pound in. It's all been take. So when people say the Glazers have spent $1 billion on Manchester United, it's the most inaccurate and offensive statement you can make, because they haven't put a penny into Manchester United. We've spent $1 billion over the last 10 years. It's our money. It's our revenue. The Glazers didn't put money in. In relation to Man City and Sheikh Mansour, yes, that money probably has come in from them, if you want to backtrack it. But we were a profitable, biggest club in the world before the Glazers came in. We make our own revenue. We make around £650 million a year. We're one of the most profitable clubs in the world. But we are held back by debt. And the debt is the Glazers. Their only legacy is debt. They don't put money in. So when I hear people on any platform with any audience sitting there and saying the Glazers have put money into the club, you can't moan, because there's always a moron from another club that comes in. We had one yesterday in the comments. Oh, Goldbridge there saying Amorim needs to spend money when they've spent $1 billion over the last 10 years. Greedy git. Relevance? Relevance? Anybody? Can you give me any relevance to that? So we should never spend another pound because we've wasted $1 billion over the last 10 years. So Amorim should get no money because everybody else messed up. Come on. But look, most important statement here. The Glazers have never put any money in. The money that's been spent on players is our money, and our money pays their debt. If you want a simplification of what happened to Man United under the Glazers, you live next door to me in a lovely house. I go to the bank. I get them to lend me money to buy your house. And then I use your house, because it makes money, to pay off the debt. I never spend anything. And then I start to use the profit from your house to give me money as well. They have never spent any money on this football club. And as for they're not responsible for the... Tim Howard also said they've spent money at the football club and it's not necessarily their fault that it's been wasted on players like Sancho. Hold on a minute. Joel Glazer writes the cheques. Joel Glazer wrote the cheque for Jadon Sancho. So again, what is this all about, you know? What was with the, we've done that one. During lockdown, the attitude was football is nothing without the fans. Now when fans are unhappy with their club, it's just suck it up and get on with it. Ridiculous for any football person to say it, says Patrick. There's a battle going on, on and off the pitch. Today, I'm so desperate for us to get a result. I know we've got the game next week, but I trust us in Spain as much as I trust us at Old Trafford at the moment. I mean, I saw that Liverpool game yesterday. Unbelievable how they managed to win it. But I always knew in the back of my head it will be a different game at Anfield. I don't think it will be a different game for Manchester United next week. I think that as we know, teams that are technically quite good on the ball, and Sociedad are, you can come to Old Trafford and you can get chances. So... we don't need our player wage bill. All we need is to replace the 50% being used on players who don't contribute with players who do contribute, says Glenn C. Gary Neville's just gifted 5 memberships. And Tracy Taylor says, after 6 months of sickness, wages stop, then sick pay. It happens to everyone else. Talk sport should be looked at for bullying, because that's what it is, says Tracy Taylor. Ardo says, that is why, if true, we cannot pay Mane 180k. I'm going to circle back on a lot of this, but a few people have been asking me about this story that came out last night, and it is a news show. So basically, Manchester United have been linked to... I can't remember how you pronounce his name. Juan Jimenez. He's an 18-year-old who plays for Rosario in Argentina. Argentinian sources, good sources, are linking us to him and saying that formal negotiations have started with him. Look, it's basically from Argentina. But as we know, Man United have been looking at the South American market for a considerable period of time. It started with Ten Hag, actually, because as we know, Ajax have had a lot of success over the years with the South American market, and Manchester United haven't. So we have started to look at that. We've seen it with Leon, who's going to come in the summer, the left back, and we're certainly looking at that area more and more. There was another lad we were looking at who was a centre-back last summer. I think he ended up going to Chelsea. I forget his name. But apparently we're looking at this Jimenez. So just look, I don't know anything about him, but this is just from a scout report on Total Football Analysis that says Jimenez's reading of the game is a speciality, especially in short spaces. After his team loses possession, his capacity to anticipate quickly is great, so he's good at reading the game. He maintains a logical distance from his mark and is a safe bet when running back. He leads the defensive line when they are high but close to his goal. He tends to break the line when the player asks. And effectively, he's good on the ball, very good in a high line, and considered to be, you know, one of those 18-year-old players that you hear about every now and again, who is going to enter the European scene at some point in the next couple of years and become a very, very good player. Sorry, Bruno, I'm not reading that out. Everything you say is right, but anyway, going back to Jimenez, I'm really intrigued by whether that actually happens or not. Look, it's a news show. We have to bring it in. What I would say is that there is sort of like this thing in me, and I think in a lot of United fans at the moment, where it's like, I'm desperate for the team to do well, but I can't stand the way the club is being run. And that is always going to be you're always going to be in conflict with that. What I would say to that is, and some of us are old enough to do it, I've seen United win titles and the Champions League under the Glazers. There's nothing wrong with supporting your players and your manager and not liking the ownership. What you've got to remember is that when Man United were winning things under the Glazers, they were still doing massive damage. Like, just because you win a Premier League title, some of us are old enough to know this. If Man United won the title in 3 years' time, it doesn't make the Glazers a good owner. If you look at what was happening when Man United won titles under Sir Alex and the Glazers were here, we weren't investing in the squad. The midfield, we never replaced Roy Keane. We left that midfield every single year. Sir Alex Ferguson would go, there's no value in the market. And you'd end up winning the title with Cleverley and Anderson. And yeah, you'd win the title, but you wouldn't win the Champions League because we weren't good enough. the investment wasn't there, and people forget that. Sir Alex Ferguson was a genius. And Alan Hansen said it on Match of the Day around 2010. He said, you could actually put Sir Alex Ferguson in charge of any of the top four and he'd win the league. He's that good. And I think that's the truth. We didn't really invest in that squad the way that we should have done between 2006 and 2012. And that's why we only won one Champions League. But Sir Alex Ferguson was a great, so he could win the league. But we didn't invest in that squad well enough. We certainly didn't invest in the stadia. The stadium was renovated quite extensively in the late 90s and early noughties. It's never been touched by the Glazers. So although we were winning the Champions League once and the Premier League a few times, what was going on behind the scenes was leading to where we are now. So even if we win, even if we buy a player you like, you should still be looking at the Glazers and going, look, it's not always about what's happening there. It's what's going on under the surface. And, United were holding up a Premier League title, but the other hand was being pulled under by the Glazers. And that's why we are where we are now. So don't be fooled by the fact that you could be successful. And don't be guilty that you want to be successful. I want Man United to win the Europa League. Yes, it will help the Glazers and Sir Jim, but their damage will still continue. And that's how I justify it. I want the team to win. Why shouldn't I? That's the purity of being a football fan, wanting Manchester United to win. But I cannot stand the way that the club is being run at the moment. Patrick Lynch says, the Glazers never invested. We had to bring Scholes out of retirement to win. Winning doesn't mean you're a good owner. It just masks how bad they were. Exactly. Thank you very much, Patrick. Keel says, everything you say is right, but if we're being transparent in regards to signing contracts managers, we've made back-to-back illogical decisions. Keel, I agree with this. And, if you look at this game tonight, I want to bring it back to that. There are no excuses tonight. Real Sociedad are a mid-table La Liga side, and they don't score goals. Manchester United are a bottom half Premier League side and we don't score enough goals. I'm not saying we're favourites. I'm not saying they're favourites. I'm saying this is 11 against 11 and we should not be going into that game fearful. We should be going into it expecting a response. We've got the players to do it. It's going to be difficult, but we're Manchester United. Absolutely. And when you talk like Keel does about the mistakes that have been made at the football club, they go back to, logically, who owns the football club. If I am Joel Glazer, I'm signing off the cheque for Sancho. I'm signing off the cheque for Anthony. I'm signing off the cheque to sack Ten Hag. I'm signing off the cheque to sack Rangnick. So, look, I'm signing off the cheque to sign Mason Mount, even though he's had 2 big injuries before we bought him. People, do not be spun by propaganda. We all know there will be a response. However impactful what happens on Sunday and what happens beyond is around this Glazer out movement, there will be a response. If you have £1 million in your pocket and people are trying to take it away from you, are you just going to open the pocket and say, go for it? Or are you going to get some security in? Are you going to put your hand there? The Glazers aren't going to sit back. They're very well versed in shutting down Man United fan movements, and they will have something planned. And also, it's not just the Glazers anymore, it's Ineos. So you're fighting 2 people here. The Glazers, who are used to these sort of things, and Ineos, who aren't used to it but won't want it either. So it's probably more difficult than it's ever been to make any impact on what's going on at Manchester United. But I think that, look, Tim Howard, is he on the payroll? Simon Jordan, is he on the payroll? I doubt it, but they're mainstream, and we've seen it with the PGMOL, just how the mainstream will come out and take a pop. Look, I think there's been a lot of people that aren't really doing a lot in relation to what the 58 are doing with these protests. I haven't heard anything from the Man United Supporters Trust again. But I've heard a lot of things from a lot of people who are really pushing it. And, there's people like, look, even accounts like MUFC MBB who get a load of shit. They won't shut up about it. And that they have a following. So those people, fair play. But look, I've seen the Overlap podcast today. It's about Kasper Schmeichel. Roy Keane, Gary Neville, big voices, could have said protests this weekend, big game against Arsenal. No mention of the Arsenal game. Why is a Kasper Schmeichel interview on the weekend, a couple of days before an Arsenal game? You got Ian Wright, you got Roy Keane. We're playing Arsenal. Where's the mention of the Arsenal game? Is it like it's like sometimes you look at things and you go, it's not speculative, it's not conspiracy, it's just strange. Anyway, the Glazers. Sorry, I've got a couple of comments to catch up on here. Howard is part owner of Memphis 901 equals BTEC Glazers, says Johnny United. Thank you very much for that, Johnny. In regards about the Glazers, we haven't won the league under these owners. They were all under Malcolm. The sons are worse than the father. Glazers out, says Trigger. And GC says, we have too many young future prospects and older players on their way down. If peak age is 26 to 29, we have next to none in this bracket. Young players need peak age players to learn from, says GC. I think this is a great point, I think it's a great point because when you look at that news we were just talking about, whether Man United are really interested in this 18-year-old from Argentina, I looked at PSG last night, and I think that's a young team. I look at Chelsea, and I think that's a young team. There's a difference between buying 20, 19, 18-year-olds, and there's difference between having a large collection of players that are ready in their early 20s. And when I say ready, obviously they're not completed, but they're well on the journey. So I look at Chelsea, and I look at PSG last night. They've got a lot of players that are not ready, but are getting close to being ready. And you would say, if PSG can keep those players together and Chelsea can keep those players together and just keep adding one or two each summer, they're going to be really good teams for the next 5 years. Look at Man United, and I think the project's wrong. I think it's too... And look, this is my biggest issue with what Amorim is sort of hinting at and what Ineos keeps saying. You look at some clubs and you can see that they are building for something in the next 12 to 18 months. I look at Man United and it looks like we're trying to build for something between 5 and 10 years. That's too long in football. Way, way too long. It's like technology. You can't plan in technology to have something ready in 5 years, because in 5 years, God knows where the world will be. Technology moves too quick to say in 5 years we're going to do this. It's like coming up with a new car concept. You can't wait 5 years. Car designs will be completely different to what we are now. You might even be fueling your car in a way that's not even been invented. In football, in my opinion, you cannot plan 3 to 5 years in front. And that's exactly what it looks like Ineos are doing. And they don't have football expertise. So I don't think they know what they're doing. I've said that before. But 3 to 5 years is way too long. And I think that's why Amorim said in that statement yesterday about he might not be here for it, because he knows what they're doing. And obviously he wants to be part of it. But I think as an intelligent football person, he's probably saying, I don't know whether I'll be here because I don't know whether I'll survive. I know they want me to be here and I want to be here, but this plan is a 3 to 5 year plan. And in football, how do you survive that if the results continue to go the way they are? And I think when you look at the recruitment of United, loads and loads of teenagers brought in last year. Obi Martin, Lasali, Kone, Avery. You're looking at this 18-year-old, Dorgu, Leon. All really exciting players, but all between 20 and 16. So they're not going to be all first-teamers in 18 months. It might be 3 years before they're established first-teamers, and they'll all be still late teens, early 20s. So that's a 3-year project. 3 years. I think it's too long. I think it's too long. I think we're also publicly putting it out there that we don't want to sign people like Gyökeres and Osimhen because they're over 25. And I'm like, who's come up with this concept of building, just buying players under 20 so that in 5 years' time we're a good team? It'll be too bloody late. We're Manchester United. No football club can wait 5 years to be successful on a punt. And also, you don't even need to look externally. You could just look internally at the club you own and go, we've had eras of young players doing well. Have we ever had an era where a young team became dominant? Well, I'm not old enough to know the ins and outs of the Busby Babes, and unfortunately my granddad's passed away now, but that was the mid to late 50s. Was that team entirely made up of young players? What was the age profile? But that's the 1950s. What I can tell you about is the class of 92. in the mid-90s. Those players took time to become first-team players, and then when they did, half the team was massively experienced. The Cantonars, the Keanes, the Schmeichels, the Irwins. So my point is, where are the Irwins, the Schmeichels, the Cantonars in this team? Because these young players are going to need that. Lots of people say Garnacho shoots too much. Mainu does this too much. That's where you need your Keane or your Schmeichel to be nurturing them and saying, do it this way, do it that way. And I don't see enough experience in that team at the moment. And I think we do need some experience, but we don't want to buy it because it costs too much money. LJ says, what are your thoughts on voluntary relegation and rebuilding? I think it's preposterous. That's why I hesitated. I think it's absolutely preposterous. Why would we want to have voluntary relegation? You might want to inflict relegation on Manchester United. You might want Manchester United to be relegated because you think it's going to cause Man United some issues. But I don't want us to get relegated because I don't think I'd get relegated to, if somebody said to me, if we get relegated, Man United gets sold, then yeah, let's do it. But I don't think they'd go anywhere. The same people that back Ineos don't realise they're in turn backing the Glazers. Do you think it's because little Jimmy is British, says Trey? Alpha Gaming, hope you're doing well. Not heard from you in ages. Thanks very much for your super chat. I think some people back Ineos out of stubbornness. We do live in a society of a told you so. As I said, I've noticed people sort of starting to turn on Amorim because they want to be early on it. We do live in a told you so society, and people will say, well, you're like that. Well, maybe I am like it sometimes. Maybe we're all like it sometimes, but there's nothing... when it comes to Man United, I actually like to be proved wrong. I mean, as I've said to you before, I think the club, if you want my honest opinion, and it doesn't matter, doesn't mean anything, it's just an opinion, I think the club's finished. I don't see a way back. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, and I certainly won't be saying I told you so when things get worse, because none of us deserve that. But I think that people back Ineos, one, because they don't want to be proven wrong, two, because I think they have an issue with the Qatari ownership model, and three, yeah, I think the fact that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is British. Look, half the country voted for Brexit, so there are people who are very much... He's got a British passport. He's a local guy. I feel, more of a relationship with him. So I think those three things are all fair reasons. I couldn't give a shit what passport he's got, because I don't think that just because you're born in Manchester and British makes you any nicer than somebody who's born in another country or any better. But for me, I wanted a full sale, Glazers out, debt gone. And Sir Jim doesn't represent that. So that was, for me, why I said he's an enemy of the football club, because I felt they were strong words at the time, and I didn't regret them, but I did have concerns about them when he got the club, because you can't move away from that. And I said that, Glazers were looking to do a deal with that American investment fund, weren't they? And I remember when it came out, the Elliott Group, and I said any group that comes in and bails the Glazers out is an enemy of the football club. And that sort of stuck based on that. So when Ineos did it, one of you said, are Ineos an enemy of the football club? And I had to double down on it or retract it. And I actually thought, well, no, anybody who rescues the Glazers is an enemy of the football club, because when you look at what the Glazers have done to the club, it's disgusting. So anybody who steps in and says, we'll help you out, has to be an enemy of the football club. And no passport, no regeneration projects, no amount of interviews is going to change the fact that Ineos rescued the Glazers. And some people lied to us and said, yeah, because they've got a plan to get rid of the Glazers by 2026. They haven't got a plan at all. Mark, I'm full Glazers out, but regarding Ghana and Mainu sales, what if Amorim doesn't have a long-term plan for them? Sell for 120 and get 5 players he needs, says Martin. Martin, great point. This is what we're about. I want to go back to the match a little bit tonight, but I will answer Martin's point. I've always said, Martin, that if Amorim wants to sell Garnacho and Mainoo, he has to be able to sell Garnacho and Mainoo. Now, we might not know the truth. Does he really want to sell them, or is he getting pressure to sell them? But if Amorim comes out and says, I want these players to be moved on, then as a manager, he has to be allowed to do that. And as fans, you've got to make your own choice. He didn't want Garnacho to go in January, and he did numerous interviews saying he didn't. The club wanted to sell him. That's something very different, and that's why it was getting on my nerves. The club should not be selling young players for profit when the manager doesn't want them to go. If that changes, that's fine. What I would say, Martin, is that it's wrong to say that if we sell Mainoo and Garnacho for 100 million as a pair, we can buy 5 players. Because what you're doing is you're taking that 100 million pounds and saying, well, we could pay 20 million in year 1 for 5 players who are worth 60 million. But you've still got to find that 100 million pound for the next 5 years to pay that off. So where are we going to find that? And also, we owe over £300 million in previous transfers, and we've got to pay debt interest. So if we raise £100 million from Garnacho and Mainoo, we're not spending it all on players. I'd say 50% of that's going to go on players that we've already bought and debt. So I'm not comfortable with sell for profit any player that we should be keeping, because if you sell Garnacho for 60, I guarantee 30 of that ain't going towards players. It's going towards debt and what we owe. People assume the profit from regeneration will go back into the club and not the owners. No rule, it has to, says Michael. No, exactly. I got some information a couple of weeks ago that if Man United do get the regeneration project up the ground, they could earn up to £100 million. Well, they could earn around £100 million a year, just from compared to today to that. So imagine all the pictures of the new Old Trafford and all the, shopping precincts and towers and plush apartments. You look at Old Trafford now, if you've been, St Matt Busby Way, Old Trafford, hotel football, and then all the industrial units and dead space and wasteland, right? Imagine that now is all, the dog's bollocks, like Wembley, all around there. Tomorrow, Man United can expect to earn £100 million profit per year from that change. Will that £100 million go into transfers, etc.? Where have you been for the last 20 years? Whose arse have you had your head rammed up? Man United make £100 million of profit and it all goes on players. How naive do you have to be? It's like leaving your cow with Ronald McDonald and expecting it to be milked when you get back. You'll be in a bloody burger, mate. Might get a milkshake with it, but you're also getting a burger and you ain't getting your cow back. Yeah, Man United making profit doesn't mean it's going on transfers. The only reason the Glazers aren't taking dividends at the moment is because we're in such a financial mess. As soon as we start being profitable again, those dividends will go. And who's to say Sir Jim Ratcliffe won't get a few dividends as well? Sir Jim Ratcliffe's gone on record many a time talking about debt being a positive thing in relation to profitability for businesses. So, we don't know, do we? But people, thank you very much for that from Michael as well. Thank you very much to Martin Saunders. Appreciate that. And Trey Warren. Thank you very much for your comments. But bringing it back to tonight, I think that when we look at the match tonight, very excited about it, actually. 5:45 kickoff. Obviously, we'll have countdown to kickoff very soon. I'm nervous. I'll be honest with you. I'm nervous. I don't get nervous in the sense that it is what it is, but it is. It is quite. It's a different type of nerves, actually. It's a sort of nerves that you get when you realise your season's going to be over, and nobody wants their season to be over in the middle of March. And well, I say the middle of March. If we got beat 4-0 tonight, it's over. Like, forget the second leg. It's over. We're not coming back from 4-0. So, a few people have been saying in the chat, there is a second leg, Mark. There is a second leg, but there is look, it's over for PSV. PSV are out. They lost to Arsenal 7-1. They're gone. It's over for Leverkusen. They lost to Bayern Munich 3-0. It's over. So it could be over tonight. And that's quite nervy because we don't deserve that as fans to be here after a horrible season at the start of March, knowing the summer transfer window doesn't even open till June. We've got most of March, April, May, and half of June before we can even do anything that we're interested in. So it's terrifying when you think about it like that. I don't get nervous about games per se, but I am nervous about the consequences of this this game today and where it could be. So look, if you are tuning in for the watch along today, I know some of you've got work and stuff, you will see a very different me because I'm agitated. And although I think there's a lot to be negative about, ultimately we're all Manchester United fans, and ultimately I don't want the season to be over for you or me. So yeah, there are bigger things going on, and what's going on at the football club is unacceptable. But on a purely selfish point, this is about keeping this season alive. I feel like, you know when a fire's going out, and I look at the Anfield fire of Liverpool and it's burning brightly and it's keeping them warm. I look at the United fire and it's going out like it's got the smallest flame, and we're not warm, we're cold, and we're all gathering around trying to protect it to get it going, and it's going out. And I want to get it going again. I want to feel warm because the light is going out on this season very, very quickly. And look, I know there's a lot going on at that football club, and I think it's massively unfair to think that it doesn't impact players. I know from certain players, and I would never betray a confidence, but I know from certain players that they share a lot of the frustrations you've got. And look, some of these players will end up being Tim Howard in 20 years talking shit because they're just footballers. They're not fans. But some of them are, on a human level, decent people, and people that they like and respect have been sacked. And they don't agree with it. And they can't speak publicly because they're under contract themselves. They don't like what's going on at the football club. It's a fact that lots of people in that football club, whether you're working in the physio department or you're in the first team, hate the way the club is being run at the moment. But so do we as fans. But we don't not get behind the team tonight. And as a player of Manchester United, for your own good and for the fans that support you, you've got to go out there and put a performance in. You've got to block off what's going on because we need something to fight for this season. And surely as a player, if you get knocked out by Sociedad, international break, there's no World Cup or Euros in the summer, you've got nothing. You're playing for nothing. You're playing for absolutely nothing from the middle of March until August. So pull your socks up, get out there and put in a bloody performance tonight. And look, I don't even care if some of these players are leaving in the summer. Be selfish. Put yourself in the shop window. There's many different angles. Do the Willian. Remember Willian in COVID in that summer when he was the best player in the bloody league for Chelsea for about 4 weeks because his contract was up. He was untouchable. And it's because his contract was running down. So I don't even care if we get players that are doing it for themselves. Just give us a result tonight. Give us something to smile about. Because, you know what? The fans are, in general, never ever not going to appreciate players who put their body on the line and put in a result. And I think tonight, look, as I said last night, Bruno's massive in this game. You know, if Bruno wants to shut up me and Roy Keane and you and anybody else that says, you know, he ain't all that. And when I say all that, I mean as a captain, and I don't think he's a midfielder, but look, he can sit there in that midfield today, dictate that game, run that game, walk off the pitch with a 2-0 win, and everyone can say, that was brilliant. And that's what we need to see, because it's going to be tough. I know what we're going to get from Sociedad. I've played the game. I've seen Sir Alex Ferguson get knocked out by Bilbao in the it might have been the UEFA Cup then. Played us off the park. The game is slower in Spain, and that benefits certain players, Anthony. But technically, it's good. And I just want us to go and put a performance in. And I tell you what, the Europa League is different to the Premier League. The Champions League is different to the Premier League. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but don't think about the Premier League in comparable to the Europa League. We are playing teams that don't play as intensely and as quickly as a Fulham will, or a Brighton will, or a Forest will. So it might be that in some weird way, this system might work in the Europa League. It might actually benefit us. And if it did, something to maybe be a little bit excited about, imagine over 2 legs, we get through Sociedad quite comfortably. And the system works. All right, we've got Arsenal at the weekend and they might thrash us 4-0. Premier League. Next round, back in the Europa League against teams that aren't as quick and as intense. So you don't know. The only place success comes from before work is in the dictionary. Sorry, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. Yes, owners are bad, but we have to realise that we aren't better than what we are. We are below mid-table team with potential to be better. I believe in Amorim, says Himrez. Yeah, I think that's a fair point in relation to the game tonight and what's left this season. It is absolutely embarrassing for every player to be in a Man United side that's 14th in the league, out of the FA Cup, out of the Carabao Cup, and in jeopardy in the Europa League. It is embarrassing. The football club and the way it's being run supersedes that in every way, shape or form, but it doesn't mean you can't point the finger at the team and go, you know what? We should be doing better. And David says, look, another good point. In the group stage, we didn't get beat. I think it's a great point, David, and I hope it's a point that comes to fruition. The Europa League is not the Premier League, and the Premier League is a bloody embarrassment, and we've lost loads of games, and we're 14th in the league. But in the Europa League, it's different teams in different countries with different styles. And look, it's not even the same for Man United. I look at these knockout games and I go, Arsenal struggled to score goals. They just battered PSV 7-1 without a striker. And PSV are second in the Eredivisie. Villa against Club Brugge created loads of chances. And Club Brugge have had some good results and knocked out Atalanta from Serie A. Obviously, Real Madrid wiped their arse with Man City. Real Madrid, Spain. What I'm saying is, indications are that Villa and Arsenal have pretty much done really well against teams that in leagues are doing quite well themselves. And you look at who's in the Europa League and you go, it's not a massive leap of faith to think that Man United could be better in the Europa League than they are in the Premier League, simply because the Premier League is very strong and very intense. Look, it might be a theory that falls on its arse at 7 o'clock tonight, but I still retain confidence that if we go into it with the right mentality, we might be a better team in the Europa League than people are thinking. I hope. I'm getting excited. Slow Sports News says, win or lose, we are all fans to watch along with you. The community is what makes this worth our time watching and hoping. Well, look, I might even open a red wine a little bit early tonight, and I'm certainly want to sing Agadoo at some point, so let's see. I'm excited about it. I mean, ultimately, as Slow Sports News says, there's a lot to be miserable about, but we are Man United fans. So they're sacrificing a 650 million per year business, spending 3 billion to make 100 million pounds per year. Ridiculous, says Keel. Well, I think you're talking about the regeneration project, mate. And as many people, well, I'm sure, attest to, I don't think Man United are going to be spending £3 billion on the regeneration project. I think there's going to be a lot of investment coming in, private and maybe public sector, on that. I did that video about the land we own in the regeneration project a few weeks ago. And I think Man United are going to be in a very good position to negotiate very good deals around this, and also more loans, you know, all sorts of stuff, leasing. I don't think it's going to cost Man United. It might not cost us a bloody penny in the short term. We might just loan ourselves up to the hilt again. Ethan Wheatley signs a new long-term deal, says Chris. That's interesting considering we never use him. And Mojo says there are potentially 5 players who can help in pure profit. Mainu, Garnacho, Rashford, Sancho, Greenwood, sell-on clause. And in terms of protests, whatever it is, has to be sustained. No point in them going quiet after a few days, says Mojo. I tell you what, somebody said this the other day. If we do get knocked out of Europe or even if we stay in Europe, the Premier League is irrelevant. So every Premier League home game, you know, who knows? It's sad, but as much as I love seeing the team play, I'm excited for the protest at Arsenal game because it could finally be the start of real change, says Ashley. And GC says Sir Jim was brought in because he has local council and government contacts to push things through the development and to be a face for the cuts. Can you imagine if the Glazers did the cuts without Ineos, says GC. Also, there ain't no way the Glazers would have got that regeneration project up either. They couldn't have done it without Sir Jim's connections. You're right. The government aren't going to be interested in negotiating with the Glazers, are they? Anyway, look, very excited. It's a 5:45 UK time kickoff. So normally we'd be kicking off at 8 o'clock. So it's about, 2.5 hours before normal time. So remember, it'll be an earlier one today. And I can't wait for you to join me for it. Really excited about it. You've probably seen it flying around the screen. Live show, Dublin, 2 weeks last night. Still some tickets to go. It's going to be a great night. Really excited about that. Scan the QR code or go through the link in the description. It'd be great to see you there. It's going to be a fantastic show. And hopefully we'll still be in Europe. And then Spotify, if you haven't listened to all the show or you want to listen to yesterday's morning show, all our morning shows are now available to listen to when you're out and about on Spotify or podcasts. All the links are in the description, or you can scan the QR code for that as well. Thanks, everybody. A lot of people asked if we could do that, so make sure you use it or you lose it. Probably won't lose it. We'll still keep uploading it. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Take care. Speak to you later.